Welcome back to the LEC Summer Split. The new Misfits Gaming are already making headlines, pulling off a big win against Fnatic last week. They have certainly caused some upsets, but they've had their ups and downs.
Yes,
I think that's fair to say.
Yeah, one of the things that I love about this Misfits squad is how domestically in the French league, they typically play this 1-3-1 style. They come onto the LEC stage and they do exactly that. They don't conform to any norms. They don't change. They ignore the meta. They just do what they know works for them. And it was good enough to upset the likes of Fnatic. And through the likes of Dandan and Leader being their two big carries, I love watching them being put on carries and then allowed to just do their thing and actually run away and find upsets like they did against Fnatic.
Yeah, and it's great to see them when they're in form, when those two players are popping off. But for me, looking at this team, they're super volatile, especially we look at the mid lane for Leader. He's had way highs, he's had way downs on all of his melee assassins in the mid lane. He plays these types of picks that are going to be extremely volatile. And I also think next to him in the jungle, Kirei as a player is also someone that paths for action. He paths for ganks as opposed to going for more efficient routes in the early game. So you'll see this team try to seek you out a lot early on, and sometimes it can backfire.
Yeah, and we saw multiple examples of this where the duo likes to work together a lot, but they're very about looking for kills, looking for opportunities, as Ender was saying, and this is a double-edged sword in the sense that it can either work extremely well, or you can end up just cutting your leg off, and now you're limping around the battlefield not knowing how to play League.
It's interesting because you heard him on Euphoria say, I pick the matchups that I just think are good, right? I just go for those matchups. I'm not going to quote him verbatim, like I said earlier, but I'm just going to say he's definitely got the confidence to go in and say, I'm just going to pick this champion because I think it's going to work in this situation, irrespective of if it works in an overall team comp, which is what I think Leader brings. It's a little bit different, a little bit G2-esque, if you ask me, just maybe not with the level of execution that G2 brings to the table.
And what I love about Leader is that he reminds me a lot of how Caps was at the very beginning of his career, which was that he would get lots of kills, but he would also die a lot. And I feel like that when you look at him in his difference between his wins and his losses, when he's winning, 10 kills. He's only dying 4 times. His damage per minute is insane, but when he's losing, he has the highest number of deaths per games out of any player, period. His damage is extremely low, but this is also how you learn and how you get better. And I'm really excited to see the growth of him as a player.
And I think actually what seems to be one of the key ingredients for Misfits is how much attention he receives from Kirei, and that seemingly is going to be an important factor coming in versus Origin.
Yeah, I mean, I think mid lane jungle 2v2 for both these teams is going to be so massive because, you know, we've already mentioned the Misfits duo being really important, but then on the side of Origin, these are two players that I think are underperforming compared to Spring. Especially we look at Nukeduck in the mid lane, we have not seen teams attack him this summer split as hard, or we haven't seen anyone attack him as hard this split than we have this entire, his entire career. Teams are actively searching him out and punishing him in the early game where he's overextending and he's getting caught out, and it's caused sort of this hole in the Origin lineup that used to be so solid for them.
And Vedis, you've raised questions about Origin over the past few weeks. In fact, I remember you telling me, I'm not even sure what they know if they're doing is wrong. Like, they don't really have a clear direction in terms of the way they want to play the game. They have got a pretty rough schedule now going to playoffs. Do we think they're even going to make it there at this rate?
Well, I think that the bright side is that G2 and Fnatic have already been taken off the board now. That's part of the reason why they're 5-7, but they still do have a challenging road ahead. And for me, I just need to see, as I've said before, much more clear direction around this team because it feels like every single game, there's something slightly different in how they're approaching. Maybe they play through top, maybe they play through bot, maybe they play through mid. It's like, in the past, that used to be one of their biggest strengths and that they could play through everyone. But now it feels like that they have no idea who they want to play through and who they want to enable. And because of this lack of direction, teams are taking advantage of it. They're shutting down Nukeduck. When they get a winning matchup against Alphari, they deny him of everything. Their bot lane is dying 2 versus 2. Like, we're seeing a lot of uncharacteristic mistakes from this Origin team, and it is so important when you think of where they are in the standings right now. 5-7, Vitality just got a win. The teams beneath them are right on their tail, and Misfits has 4-8 right now. So if they win this game, they're now tied.
This is a huge match for playoffs, and in terms of that standings, like you just illustrated there, this couldn't be any bigger for both of these two teams. One team is on the rise, however, the other is in a slump. Let's see if Origin can bounce back.
Thank you very much, Excalibur, and welcome to the History Channel with your golden oldies or goldies, Quick Shot and Papa Smithy. And Twitter decided we should be called Quick Smithy, by the way. That is our duo name, just to let you know.
Good to know, and I want to steal one of your things, so I've got a quick stat for you.
Ooh.
If you add our ages together, you can get 3 Enders.
Oh, my word. Okay.
I know.
So,
I know. We're old.
The audience can't quite do math. They didn't really enjoy that one. Papa Smithy, I'm so sorry that it took so long to get you to Europe. That Gorilla is not on Misfits. And the Misfits roster is not the one that you were so excited about.
And the crazy thing is, the Korean imports are popping off with my arrival today with consistency. So somewhere Gorilla's having a good time, I hope. Let's see if the good times will roll. We had a Garen game, which was its own amazing wonder just before, but now we get one that you wouldn't have thought 2 weeks ago would be very close when it comes to expectations, but picking a winner between Misfits and Origin is a hair puller and a half.
It is, because you have to try to predict what level of performance these teams are going to show. Origin has been on a downward trend, and this Misfits Premier roster that has made its debut to LEC is just looking stronger and stronger. Let's see what they get their hands on in the draft. TK, Sejuani, and Yuumi taken off the table, followed by Kali.
And to set my expectations for where I'm looking for these teams to win, what their kind of most important focal points will be, on the Misfits side, to many people's surprise, it won't be Leader. I think Leader has a very distinct role in the game. Very much he's a player that only plays take over the game champions that can go to a side lane like an Assassin, like an Aurelia, and take over the game. But you don't get there just by solo killing a million times. Usually you need someone else doing this. I want to see if Dan can be one of those places that Origin has to invest a lot of resources so that Leader can kind of farm himself to relevance. That's kind of my thought on the Misfits side.
I get it unlocks his play style. If he's the only person playing aggro,
everyone goes mid, and then it doesn't work. But on the side of Origin, it's cold. You know, the jungler there, his jungle proximity numbers were through the roof last week, but actually getting impact where he went, that was where it didn't connect. It didn't feel like everything was in sync, like it was looming towards playoffs in spring season. So we get a Leader champion with the first pick. Not necessarily going to go there, but that is a very core pick for Misfits.
It absolutely is. Leader had a phenomenal performance on that Irelia at EU Masters. Dan has also played it on our stage, so there are some opportunities and possibilities here. But one of the things I want to ask you to keep your eyes open for, Papa Smithy, is the storyline you mentioned, that there needs to be another pressure valve for this Misfits roster to truly unlock Leader. And I want to see if we can visibly see that in the draft. And obviously we'll need a few more picks before we answer that. Gragas, the response here from Origin.
And yeah, like you mentioned, we saw Mickey take over a game on the Aurelia from the mid lane. It can happen from top, but it's definitely a champion that fits the bill. Looking over the side of Origin, Gragas priority rising. Always the chance that Yasuo will be paired with it, an old Nuke Duck pick through many, many metas.
Well, let's see what happens. Xayah, they're now confirmed in. Rakan is still open and available. So whether or not Mithy and Patrick will get the duo, or if Misfits feel they want to deny it, we'll find out shortly.
A really fun draft you could take here is Karma Ezreal, because it can be an entire duo lane, or it can just be a smoke valve to get a potential lead elsewhere. Not somewhere you have to go, and some people are on the Ezreal hype train like Patrick, other people are not. Leader playing with our hearts with multiple different picks here. Jungle would show nothing about the draft. You would actually learn a lot if the Azir was locked in.
Well, it's not going to be just yet. Well, before I speak too soon, a lot of options being thrown around, and we saw the Corki going bot lane a little bit earlier. So we've obviously got that Azir Corki meta we've talked a lot about, and while both were hovered, it was the Rakan. You cannot give that power over to Patrick and Mithy.
Also, who is doing the Azir Corki hovering but none other than the player who was so clear on Euphoria, flaming people for not actually looking forward from the meta and sticking with Azir Corki duty. That was Leader. Definitely a must-listen to interview. Hashtag sellout from the freelance caster.
Oh, I'm so proud. You're trained so well, Papa.
What can I say? I signed
Now,
the contract.
The question is, does Karma go top Irelia mid based on what we're seeing from the Misfit sides?
You would kind of see that's where it would fall in,
that's
right? Because you do think of Leader as that sort of guy who gets to a certain item point on Aurelia and can kill a game and can take the 2v3s and 2v1s that we saw Mickey on before. But we've seen stranger things already today.
Yeah, we have, absolutely. And maybe we're going to enter the upside down if Jesus is able to pull the rug out from under us, show a surprising turn for Leader and running the Karma, but we need to get through the rest of the draft before we determine that. Elise and Yasuo taken off the table. We're still looking for a jungle champ for Kirei. with Elise being taken away. He's played that twice on stage. Gragas is obviously taken away as well. I want to see where he goes, especially with Sejuani and J4 also banned.
And he can also have a very personal champion pool. I always think of Kindred when I think of Corey. Same as Dread over on Afrika Freaks. Both those guys have that pocket Kindred that has come through in both pro play and solo queue, but a pick that is very unlikely to be thrown out there.
Yeah, of course, it's a challenging one to get in the draft. It really has to be preferential. And I'm not sure I love it into the likes of a Nautilus and a Gragas that have some tools to deal with it. So we'll find out in a few seconds as Azir has been banned away and Sivir the final option. So the Corki, the Ezreal, those types of picks that Patrick can shine on, available to him, and we'll see which direction he goes. What would you like to see these guys locking in now?
If you go the Corki early here, you kind of give away the white flag. It's going to be a scaling draft, and you're going to very much be looking for certain power spikes. I'd much prefer the Renekton to give a lane that can be attacked. It doesn't have to be mid or top lane. It is a flex pick in and of itself, but likely to just be shadowing wherever the Aurelia wants to go, given the matchup is a good one for the Renekton. So that's the information they have. It's a very straightforward draft from them. We're trying to work out where Misfits going to be placing their champions. I alluded to the Ezreal earlier. It's going to be Ezreal Rakan, not Ezreal Karma like we illustrated, but still going to be Ezreal probably just for some safety and to allow Corey to play top side, but it kind of depends what type of jungler he wants to jump on.
Yeah, and I also like this idea because you can just leave Neon alone and go and play around that Irelia lane, or even the Karma lane to a degree, once we find out what Kirei locks in. Fair amount of mobility. It's kind of that same flavor that we've seen from Kirei. Aggro in your face, Xin Zhao to close out the comp.
And it's something that can just repeat gank and really focus on a single lane and make your inroads doing that. So I don't mind this pick at all from the side of Misfits. Very difficult jungler for Gragas to skirmish against. Looking for Origin to close up the draft, and this would be the standard choice. When in doubt, go Corki.
Definitely going to give you that scaling option. So what do these two team compositions want to do in your eyes?
I think on the side of Origin, they're trying to use the potential to just play through top side with just say first Predator gank and how reliable a Renekton is to bridge to Xayah's 2 items, Corki's 3+ items, and they'll feel very comfortable team fighting because front to back, you've got 280 carries in the back and a lot of tanky frontliners on the side of Origin. Meanwhile, on the side of Misfits, it's a draft that can actually play a 4-1 style around Leader's split push, assuming Leader will be the one jumping onto the Aurelia. Almost certain given his reputation, and there is the confirmation at 20 seconds. And from there, you strap some shields onto Ezreal and start looking for a siege on that. Yes, Xin Zhao and Rakan don't provide too much in that area, but can be used on the disengage. And if Leader reaches critical mass, if he can 1v1 the Renekton, there's actually kill potential and a potential win condition for the side of Misfits.
There absolutely is, but there's so many ifs. So many ifs, and that's what we need to judge.
That's League of Legends, baby.
The last time Leader played Irelia on the stage, he finished the game 1 kill, 6 deaths, and 1 assist. So there's a lot of pressure on this Misfits Gaming roster and on Leader to perform.
So what you're saying is he's overdue for a pop-off game on Aurelia is what I'm hearing, because he's just like Mickey. He got those pop-off games to back up the ones that don't go so well.
Well, let's flip the coin and find out which Misfits will take it to the stage today as they take on Origin here in the LEC. Thank you very much, Berlin, Germany. We jump into game number 4 here in week 7. And there's a little bit of early game shenanigans as multiple Misfits members, actually the entire Misfits team, are going to be somewhat met here by Origin. Alphari is the only one sitting very far north of this. I don't believe either squad has much vision, but they're going to be committing. Mithy and Patrick going to be revealed. Leaders coming in. That's already the dash away. Mithy's in trouble, forced to flash. Early advantage to Misfits, and Mithy could be a juicy target in that bottom lane.
And there was actually almost certain to be a face check in that play, because I was looking at the minimap while we were seeing that kind of the Mexican standoff between the two, and there was no defensive wards at that point, only the single one you notice placed down from either team. as the face check started to happen, so Mithy has to invest his flash to get away from the player. The Ignite trade, a lot shorter cooldown coming through from Hiva, but especially if it plays out as we expect and Neon and Hiva kind of left on an island, having the enemy Nautilus flash down relieves a lot of pressure from the Misfits duo lane.
It really does, and seeing Hiva leading the charge and Mithy losing the flash.
So this is cool, Trevor, just to cut you off here. Dan's looking for a blind swap mid lane as they're trying to work out exactly where the Renekton is going. They want Leader to dodge out on the Renekton matchup. That is a Renekton counter pick to Aurelia for as long as possible. So we're being flexible from level 1.
Oh, very nice. And while you did cut me off, it actually was good because it was important. But I just want to tug on your heartstrings for a second.
Oh.
Because with Hiva and Mithy starting off the support story, and, you know, Papa Smithy, you started a very successful meme.
You know, it's true. I didn't know you were going to shine the light on me here today. Okay, putting me on the spot a little bit.
With Gorilla leaving Misfits, you had to retire the Gorilla. Was it heart-wrenching?
You know, at some point, I was running out of pictures of sad gorillas, and you had to Google some kind of really awkward things in order to get them, like Death of a Gorilla, which is getting a bit morbid.
Wow, that had to get very dark.
I mean, they lost a lot of games, Trevor, so it got tricky.
I can tell everyone watching, I did not tell Papa Smithy that was going to happen. I didn't know we were going to talk about dead animals at the moment, so we'll move on and turn our attention to this Irelia
To being
versus
excited about champions
Corki
dying. Hooray!
matchup. But the next question I'm going to ask then is, Karma into Renekton, this is obviously beneficial for Dan, and to my eyes, could be one of those pressure valves that will allow Leader to farm up, get the levels, get the items he needs to carry Misfit.
I think you can't disagree with that point, but what you can mention, I guess maybe we'll have to hold as Korea's already topside.
Yeah, we can. There's a flawless duet. Nukeduck's down to less than 100.
Wow.
Leader with the solo kill onto Nukeduck.
Correa just comes and watches front row as Leader gets his own lead in the side lane, coming to top lane way earlier than we would have anticipated, dodging away from the Renekton, and it just seemed like Nukeduck, we didn't see the start of the play, but he seemed to invite too much early damage they just didn't have an answer for, and they're looking for the repeat gank here.
They absolutely are. While that's going on, Dan was dashed on. Now Nukeduck's trying to escape. Flawless Duet will not find a target, but they get the teleport out of Patrick.
And I was waiting to see whose that was. I was wondering if there was something coming from the bot lane shenanigans-wise, but that was actually the 80 carries TP as well. And you'll notice they're not going to use this as a reason to lane swap and potentially try 2v1 Aurelia. That's just Patrick missing and potentially losing any wave control on the bot side. Doesn't seem like, at the end of the day, Misfits want to hard push this one, as they don't have enough advanced vision, I guess, to want to greed for plates.
No, of course not. And of course, when you see Leader getting a solo kill early, as a player that is either a 5-0 or an 0-5 style player, this is a very, very good sign. And of course, we're actually going to watch the solo kill from the perspective of Leader.
And already got the press the attack down. And worth mentioning, this is not Conqueror. Press the attack is for the earlier damage. You get that flat 40 damage, I think, at level 1 just from getting the press the attack proc, and doesn't even need the Xin Zhao in order to do all the hard work.
Yeah, really nicely done. And, you know, the analyst desk actually set up Leader's playstyle, and I just mentioned a moment ago, in wins, 10 kills to 4 deaths. In losses, 2 kills to 5 deaths. Look at the damage share as well, you know, when he's unlocked, when he can carry, and it's kind of what you expect of this young, aggressive, mechanically impressive mid laners produced from Europe. And now Leader will get jumped on by Cold. Chilling Smite comes down and just instantly punished.
That was some caster and stats curses right there, which you have to appreciate on some level. Hiva brawling with Patrick to stop him from going for a back timing or anything like that. The lovers quarrel.
But it's again, it's a play style that you anticipate. It's the play style you expect. And at the end of the day, kill was secured by Cold, so it's not going to help Nukeduck out too much in this lane, Papa.
One of the interesting things about the first replay was they actually saw Gragas on that blue ward bot side, so it was the perfect time to all in. But Leader decides the perfect time to all in is when you get a chance, when you surf off a minion wave, where you could potentially just back away after a good trade, whether you get the kill or not, and keep the freeze on, and keep the zone on. But this time, Cold is in a spot where he's able to actually get a great combination with his laners. We talked in Champion Select how his proximity was high in terms of being around those laners, but the effective ganks weren't there last week. So already, Leader was a player that Cold would have been licking his lips about. Ganking wouldn't have known it would be top lane, but it comes together in that play.
And it's really great that the two players we're looking at in the pregame have both already shown up. Cold 1 and 0. You'll notice that Alfari's made his way back to the top lane. The moment Nukeduck showed mid, Dan already moved up top, and they're going for this
They're going to hard
dive.
force this one. I
Let's
don't think they're
see
going to be very patient.
if the stun can connect. Dan did not use the empowered ability, and Cold is waiting in the wings. There's Alfari going forward. That's a 3-on-1 for now. He's already dead before Cold can arrive, and that was just beautiful.
And it was nice and assertive too. This is what can happen when you have a jungler like Xin Zhao with a roaming mid laner. In this case, the Karma. They're looking for further ganks, but pretty hard to keep Cold down completely.
Yeah, it really is. The 3-talent strike did get a small knock-up. It's still a 3-on-2, even with Alfari teleporting in. Teleport will complete there from Dan. Recall rather, and he's going to teleport to the mid lane. But I mean, what do you make of these lane swaps? You know, do you like seeing this when you've got those counter matchups in the likes of Renekton into Irelia?
I think avoiding the matchup is pretty strong, and also because trying to reactionarily jungle in this case is Cold is pretty tricky, because when to be somewhere, given the Karma, of course, is going to push in a Renekton, and Xin Zhao has so much kill pressure from level 2 onwards, is really, really tricky. It almost feels like there's potential smoke in mid and top at all points, and like we predicted, no one's going anywhere near the bot lane.
No, absolutely not the case. Still an even game as far as gold is concerned, 300. Nothing really to write off. Look at the minimap though. Cold and Kirei are both waiting. Kirei does not have level 6 yet, Cold does. So that displacement could prove very valuable.
Predator's on top, so they know about this.
All right, Leader gonna look for the Flawless Duet. He might be able to find a 2-man stun. No, just the one into Cold. Dashing sideways, but there's Kirei trying to find the knockup, but the barrel manages to force Kirei away, and OG even a kill.
Good problem solving by Origin, all things considered there. Kirei in the right position, not level 6 like you noticed, but in the end wouldn't have been a difference, and that's after a beautiful Flawless Duet did connect with Cold. The extra health from the Dominus enough to guarantee that one. And it's just like it's been repeat ganks from both sides. They're going for more!
Oh, they are indeed, and that's just a killing spree already for Cold. This is a very impressive start for Origin, and arguably the best early game I've seen in several weeks. This team, remember, is on a 3-game losing streak, and they seem to understand how to punish the youthful Misfits squad.
And it's good to see that. The prep against Misfits would have been clear, because like you say, it's very much open book what Leader's going to try to do, and then we're more examining around it what can be done to stop that from happening. It's the eventuality of the play is there to some degree. I think after the modifications of the early game, which was smart from Misfits to go from the early swap, Origin have done a lot of good things. This was, as we mentioned, open book for both sides, but if you're not going to fully disengage from the turret, there's no teleport for Leader for a while. I guess Kirei kind of has to come and start clearing minions a little bit earlier, otherwise the gank is always going to bear fruit, at least in one form.
Of course, it's one of those things you're going to look at a lot, because Vanguard's Edge was up and available for Leader. Wonder what order you want to try throw those abilities out and try to survive the play, and at the end of the day, he didn't. So Leader, 1-2-1. Remember the last time we played him went 1-6-1. Not like a precursor or anything, just a reminder of how it went. And this Flawless Duet will not find a target. Nukeduck could get jumped on. There is some support from Dan, but the package will get him out to safety. And it's Origin that have pulled a hit just before 10 minutes. 700 gold up. And Papa, what was your take on Origin? You know, when we were talking coming into this, we all had some nerves based on their recent performance, but is this good for you in your eyes and versus what you were expecting?
I think it's definitely a jump up from most recent games. I think you've had to adjust expectations because the run for Origin into playoffs, you know, should have started a couple of weeks ago, but has been pretty all over the place. I mean, you just look at the match scores, right? And Misfits had no wins to speak of for a long time till they swapped out their original roster and brought in the Premier roster, and Origin just haven't really been in sync. I've been kind of watching over their games and just been looking for rhyme and rhythm from a squad that was always so clean in spring season. You know, they reminded me a lot of how they wanted to play the game as SKT as possible, it felt like, in spring, and that was to their benefit. But in summer, they've always felt a little bit off the pace in terms of what they're trying to do. And I've been noting down drafts saying, okay, you're going to play top side, and they'll put all their resources bot. And I'm like, oh, I don't really get this. So that internal consistency that was their calling card hasn't been there. As bot lane, we're trying something.
They are indeed, but a lot of mobility on this Misfit squad. A very, very safe duo. Maybe part of the reason they picked it, and it managed to work out perfect.
And honestly, sometimes ults like that are not actually for kill pressure, but to try to get some lane presence back, to stop a freeze from happening. They got 2 control wards from Misfits on the bot side, and any health bar lead you can get can actually get some stability in what was a trying situation for Origin's bot.
Okay, so not too bad. We'll keep an eye on if it actually ends up helping out. While that was going on, Cold accidentally secures the blue buff. We'll see whether or not that's a tilter. He's going to run into Kira, and actually, I think OG have got More support here earlier. Kirai's going to throw down the ultimate already. Leader has the potential for a big stun. Not going to throw it out just yet. The Dredge Line manages to connect onto Dandan. Leader forced to flash defensively. He's rooted in place. Now he's being chased down. Below 100. One more auto from Nukeduck will pick up the kill. Teleport from Patrick will secure the Rift Herald. And Origin, they're going to get themselves an advantage. Dandan and Kiva escape by their hairs on the chinny chin chin. And the Rift Herald secured there by Patrick.
Good contest time from the side of Origin. Mithy packed up after that all-in and went straight to the Rift Herald. And in the play, because Kirai's health bar was basically void at the start of it, having used all of his health bar to tank the Rift Herald and then also get turned on, he was out. Leader used all of his health bar trying to contest in the backline, but it was almost always at 6s and 7s from the side of Misfits and unlikely to control the Rift Herald because it's still so healthy as the play starts.
Well, at the end of the day, Origin, they close this one out clean and just not really seeing that beautiful mechanical prowess from the Misfits players in those skirmishes that I kind of have come to expect. You know, Leader, you sometimes think he could pick up some kills here and there, and unfortunately has just been bullied by Origin.
I think it's worth mentioning that Patrick had the TP advantage, was coming in, throwing any more resources after Leader had already dived in, was going to be just chasing a loss. Something we all have done at some point in our career. So because of that, Misfits back away. They'll need to find a better time here. We have to kind of now start to gauge where we're at in terms of CS leads, as we've had multiple lane swaps, but Leader a little bit off the pace, but eventually 2 items, things come together.
Yeah, I mean, when you're playing in grayscale at 1-3-1 as far as your scoreline is, you will be down 20 CS, Nukeduck up, obviously, and it's been Dandan that's been matching that Renekton as often as possible. Cold actually is going to get charmed up here, but Mithy's already in range. Kirai's going to block some damage for now, and Hiva forced to run for his life. Not enough damage from Neon. The teleport from Nukeduck. That's a stun and a kill onto Neon. Hiva will get shut down by Mithy. And that's just a very good play for Origin. Now Dandan all out of sorts. 4 members of Origin going to look to run him down. Kirai and Leader nowhere near close enough. And this could be the first tower of the game. Once that next minion wave conga lines its way in. In fact, they may even be able to take it down now. Here comes Mithy from behind. No ultimate, but he may not need it. Flash over into the Riptide. Dredge Line will also catch, and yet another to Origin.
Absolutely, one by one they fall on the side of Misfits, trying to make something happen, trying to force, or overforce, I would say, with Hiva, but Origin actually get the more decisive teleport spot straight onto the control ward in the brush there, and that means that Misfits are horribly out of position. They take a lot of losses on the bot side, and a couple of turret plates in the mid lane, maybe just a single one for Neon, but the gold lead is already, as his pause comes in, 5,000 gold.
I mean, 5,000 gold at 13.5 minutes is fantastic. I can see that it was Dandan that paused the game, so we will be waiting to see what happens there. And just be a little careful what we're saying, as obviously headset is off for now. Once that goes back
So you're
on.
saying we need to fill time and
need to be a
maybe
little
not to be
cautious.
too game focused?
That's what I'm trying to do. So hypothetically
I'm listening.
speaking, Papa Smithy, last weekend and this weekend, Excoundrel, the British banter squad member, managed to bring good luck and fortune to XL.
Yeah.
Origin have kind of sucked for a few weeks.
That's true.
You show up and you've known not only the brand and the organization and the casters for a long time. Are you a good luck charm for this Origin squad?
You know, it's a bit early to call. I will say that I'm positively affecting the Korean imports so far, so I'll take that.
There we go.
I didn't bring them any special treats. They would have loved some Shin Ramyun that, of course, all Korean players know and love.
I'm going to challenge you as well, because you mentioned that Origin have kind of got an SKT-esque style of play. It's one we actually talked a little bit about during the course of Rift Rivals as well, when we were looking at the NA-EU matches. Is there any similarities in this Misfits squad that you've seen from LCK teams in recent memory that some of our viewers might be able to relate to?
I mean, you're definitely putting me in the spot a little bit.
I am indeed.
Definitely when you see kind of a player as raw as Leader with a real carry mindset, it reminds you of, say, Nagori, the top laner of Damwon Gaming, kind of the mechanics crew they have there. And I actually watched most of the Misfits Premier games as they went on to win that title at EU Masters, and it really was the Leader show, but there was pop-off games. Like we saw the Dandan Jax game recently in the LEC that was super good as well. So I really do love watching teams like this. Like the story of coming in from the regional league to the LEC should have died with franchising, right? Or with permanent partnerships, because you no longer had promotion relegation, which is obviously something we hold near and dear to our hearts over in Korea while we still can. Who knows what will happen in the future, but we love it while it's there. But Misfits coming in and battling with the big boys, winning over Fnatic last week was a really big story for them. And seeing them continue to grow, I must admit, maybe it's my age, maybe you're with me here on this point, but there's something like romantic about the team stepping up to the big leagues
stage,
in a very surprising way as a whole roster rather than just one player coming in and actually performing against the big guns, because they make mistakes, but they're honest mistakes. You look at the mistakes and say, of course a rookie squad would make that mistake. You don't have all the
But then you
thousands of
see the
games of
pop-off
practice.
games and you see the victories.
The potential.
And you go, of course a rookie squad would look Fnatic in the eyes and say, I do not care. I mean, this Misfit squad, I have been saying for a few weeks, in my mind, has already performed better
I've
than
heard
the
you
super team.
just throwing out
I've been
ideas,
trying.
and no one has been
I've
picking up
fishing,
what you've
but
been
the thing
throwing
is,
out.
They are 2 wins, 2 losses, that 50% win ratio. Right now, they're not looking great against Origin, right? But let's live in a world they win tomorrow. If they keep winning, win one, lose one, win one, lose one, you can't argue the results. And while their ceiling may theoretically be lower, if their consistency is higher, they are going to outperform. And of course, we need to see what happens with the rest of this game. It's going to be one hell of an uphill battle with the 5K goal deficits.
I know what you're fishing for.
Oh,
but
yes.
I think what I'll
Did I
say
catch
is,
anything?
I'll say that the Misfits Premier, current Misfits gaming squad, seems to hold more promise in terms of investing more time and giving them the benefit of the doubt than the squad that clearly had a lot of talent but wasn't gelling as a 5. So if that's what you're looking for, like, it's hard to disagree, because we are seeing incremental improvements, but also some times where you look at it, you shake your head and say, come on, you could be better than this.
Yep, looking at some of the decisions this game. Just before we actually look at one of the replays, I just want to let you know that Misfits Pause, they have asked officials to review some shadow play footage of what I believe Dan saw during the last 30 seconds of gameplay. A player has reported a potential bug, so while we're reviewing that, we will just carry on chatting a little. I do actually have a replay of the last team fight. I believe it was all of the chasing down in the bottom lane. We'll confirm this in a moment or two. And yes, it is. Like, is there anything Misfits could have done differently or that you would have liked to have seen, Papa?
At the end of the day, they expect Cold to be in this brush because, of course, you would be trying to stop Shelly from just getting the entire turret there. So they dive in super aggressively, but the moment they commit to the TP, you can just see it's a core of 4 in the middle, and amusingly, Mythy trying to whack-a-mole on the Rakan on the back end of the fight. And the moment that the play starts, you can see that Origin was aware of what a potential reaction to their play would look like, and it was Misfits playing into their hands, where Misfits thought they were being opportune, face-checking a brush with the Rakan W.
And of course, as that replay ended, there was an additional kill that was picked up as Mythy was able to flank through the Misfits jungle and come in from behind. Mythy and Cold have been exactly where Origin have needed them this entire game for every play.
So, you know, I had an experience like that, completely unrelated to League of Legends, recently that you would enjoy.
Oh, tell me.
So, I was really craving an Australian meat pie in South Korea. As you can imagine, not the easiest thing to satiate, given the population style. However, what opens very near to me is a South African pie shop that would definitely be something you are interested in.
Close enough. We do have a lot of similarities in our
Are you
common...
a meat pie lover?
Of course, yes. Of course, yes. Though I will admit I have British heritage.
Oh, that's
thereby
right. Your meat pies are weird.
Cornish
the British side.
pasties, steak and kidney, pepper steak. You know, those are the
I'm going to put UK on
triumvirates.
blast. I went there when I was like 9 years old. I am half Australian, half British. I got both passports. I bought my British passport just in case I needed to show it to get into the LEC. I don't know what your rules are. And I had my first pie at 9 years old, only used to Australian meat pies, which are warm, by the way, and that meat pie was cold. And that was a
no,
problem.
that's weird. You can't have that.
How do they have
Also,
warm beer
for-
and cold pies? What's going on
For
there?
what it's worth, you also shouldn't be bringing a British passport to the LEC. There's a very short time limit on the validity.
Hey,
of
I
that
got
one.
to use it while I can.
Well, we are obviously still investigating the situation over on stage. And it is a lot of fun to have Papa here to not only have some fun talking about pies, but also to pick your brain. Have you been surprised by some of the picks that you've been seeing? Let's exclude Garen, right? But like the differences between the LCK and the LEC.
I think it's ebbs and flows always. There's definitely weeks where you're still playing Azir versus Corki last week, and we actually had Azir just falling through a lot of drafts, but Corki getting banned because a lot of Challengers players were playing Corki top. We saw Corki top in solo queue as well. There's definitely cultural flavors like Draven versus Kalista when it comes to kind of the representative of the bot lane that we don't really see swapping around either region. and that's just a quirk of how games play out. It's kind of like how North America will play Caitlyn Lux, and that doesn't travel very well to other regions. So I feel like there's an appropriate amount of overlap, and kind of my favorite anecdote around that is the fact that when I go to Cast the LCK these days, the Korean analysts are very much talking about what's happening in LEC, what's happening in LCS, compared to kind of 2-3 years ago where it didn't matter because Korea was going to win.
It helps a lot when Team Liquid takes down Invictus Gaming
Sure.
and G2 win MSI, of
Exactly.
course, right? But like contextually speaking, the most recent results are very heavily influencing how many other regions are watching at NEU.
But that just makes our League of Legends ecosystem more healthy because I've always been someone that whatever the projected final result, there's kernels of greatness in every region that can be unlocked that people overlook because it's not worth the time or they can't be bothered. But at the end of the day, this has forced everyone to look sideways, and I think that's mostly for the betterment of the world meta because there's no surprise picks that go from meta to meta. Very much when one thing happens, everyone's talking about it.
Surprise picks that go from meta to meta. If you were to predict the Invin Global translated reactions to G2's Garen top, how do you believe the Korean fans would chat about that game?
I mean, it's going to be super hindsight bias, right? Because a lot of Koreans will be asleep. I think it's like 4 a.m. in Korea. I'm usually awake at that time because I'm crazy, but most people are going to be asleep. But if they had won, it would have been like, wow, they can even do it on Garen. We never had that in 9 years over here. Now it's going to be some jumbling of, well, they should have really respected their opponent. Blah,
I haven't
blah,
even
blah.
read our own region's responses, so I'll double check on that. Look, just a quick update, ladies and gentlemen. After a pause from Dan on Misfits, he reported a potential bug. League officials are in the process of reviewing the game footage, and as they continue to investigate, we're going to send it over to the analyst desk.
Oh, we're having so much fun.
Thank you very much, Quickshot. Yes, there has been a bug reported on Dan's side. We'll hopefully get to the bottom of it as quickly as possible. But for now, let's take a brief look at what has happened over the course of this game so far, because it looked like there was some magic happening on the top side of the map for Misfits. But
So you know what? I'm going to give you the TLDR.
Okay, all right,
I
ready. I'm
figured
ready.
out how Misfits win games.
Okay.
Put leader top lane. You can't camp him as effectively if he's in top lane when he's in mid. I mean, think about this. He's found 2 solo kills in the 2 games that he has played top, especially when he's on these carries assassins. When he goes mid lane, he's 0-5 every game. I'm just saying that in all seriousness, there's a lot of value in moving this guy up towards the top side of the map.
Look, all I'm saying is that if you look at the numbers before this game, yeah, put him in the top lane. And yeah, he got a solo kill in the top lane this time around, but then we saw Cold go top lane and absolutely try to shut him down. So, like, it started off looking really good for leader, don't get me wrong, but I think Origin have done a lot to try and turn that around.
all right, I'll bring this back to some realms of normality and I'm not going to say serious discussion because Venice is going to turn around and say, I was bloody well serious.
I am serious.
Let's have a look at the draft and see where we can begin things, because from your perspective, you guys haven't had the chance to dissect this. What do you think the projected win conditions for these 2 particular compositions are?
Well, when we look at these 2 teams, I think a big question for me is like the item breakpoints that they really become strong on. Specifically over on the side of Misfits, I think 2 items is going to be very, very powerful for them. So making sure they can have a solid early game to enable this Aurelia into a side lane can be very important. And then we look at team fighting of an Ezreal, a Xin Zhao, all these champions really are going to be powerful in the mid game. Whereas on the side of Origin, they can have a little bit more time, I feel. They've got a pretty beefy front line to set up for 2 marksmen that are going to be really coming powerful on 3 items.
I feel that what I like about Misfits draft is that it gives Hiva the freedom to roam.
Okay, and we know that's what makes Hiva good in certain
Yeah,
scenarios,
I actually, last week when we watched, as we see the...
Is that a Poro
that
they're
is a
knocking
Poro.
around?
Crap
That's
is
awesome.
playing right now. One of the things I really liked from Hiva last week is when he is able to roam and actually impact the rest of the map, because I think that he works very well with leader specifically, and I feel like that their synergy is great at their ability to find 2v2 skirmishes, and like when you have a Rakan and an Aurelia, I just think it gives you a lot of setup. So I love that they went for this direction. And then for the side of Origin, I feel like that we're seeing a little bit more meta, but we're also seeing a lot of like put resources into Alfari early. And remember how at the beginning of the segment we were talking about how they seem to have different ideas in different directions each game. One consistent that we've seen is that Alfari has been almost a rock for this team, right? Whereas now by putting him on Renekton, rather than just a lane advantageous matchup like the Kennen, for example, they actually really want to funnel resources into this matchup. And in particular, I think that they wanted to put him into the leader matchup too.
Absolutely.
So that they could not only play around one of their best performing players, but they could also do it early. And so, in my opinion, what Origen needed to do was focus on investing jungle attention into him and then also shutting leader down at the same time.
Yeah, the difficult thing for them was, though, that the lane swap came through on the Misfits side as well. So leader was in the top lane. It was all of a sudden Karma into Renekton to the mid lane, which is a little bit harder to work with. So I think we saw the early game start off much slower for Origen, where they didn't have a clear idea of which lane they can actually play around. But once they got that Renekton back into the top lane, they set up some dives onto Dan and have now put Alfari, as you said, in a very good position.
So I kind of got a brief understanding of like how these teams win based on item spikes and maybe some certain matchups here. But like in terms of like a cold hard way to execute these particular compositions, with Misfits, what am I looking at? Am I looking at a situation where I've got 2 items on Ezreal, 2 items on Irelia, fight for first Baron, snowball from that?
So what we're seeing from Misfits is what we, as a caster team, call like a 4-1 setup, where it's simple in the idea of like you 0 one lane, 4 people the middle lane, and then 1 person in the side lane, right? And the idea is that you have your 4 and your 1 play relatively close together so that you can move between the 2 lanes. And the idea is that you have your 1 be strong enough that he can generate pressure on him by himself, and the 4 just generates pressure because they have a numbers advantage. And this is something that Misfits' comp will likely look to execute.
Yeah, and the difficulty for them, though, is this matchup of side laners. When we look at Irelia versus Renekton, where Renekton should, by all means, if they enter on neutral footing, win that matchup in the side lane, which can really slow you down.
Because this is the debate we've actually had a lot, where I think Irelia does outscale Renekton. So even with Shojin, she gets to a point where she should be stronger than him in a
So here's the problem with the Irelia versus Renekton matchup for Irelia. First of all, Renekton just brings a huge ball of stats with his ultimates. It's really powerful. But the main thing is, Renekton's spells, you can't really miss them. Irelia's skills, and especially getting Q resets, is very reliant on her ultimate and her E to land. The E to land being very, very difficult against the Renekton, who has multiple dashes and can instantly run in on you and instantly CC you with the W as well.
And actually, Alfari's put himself in a good position to command that side lane for the foreseeable future in this game. He seems like he's in a strong position in that top lane, zoning Karma away, zoning Dan away because of that roam.
Well, this is the thing, right? Because we talked a little bit about what Misfits want to do, but that's only if they get ahead. If they're behind, then their situation changes because now they have to play to Origen's game plan. And I think that they are in a similar position where they can look to play a 4-1 style too, but they also have the options to play more of a wider map state and go for a 1-3-1 setup. Because with Corki's utilization of the package and his accessibility to mobility, he can move between lanes much easier as well.
So if we take the current state of the game right now, it looked like it was moderately even, but leader being that core factor for Misfits looked like he wasn't having an explosive game. Do you think that right now Origen are holding the cards in terms of the way that this game state is right now?
Yeah, I mean, personally, I think Origen feel in a very comfortable position, both for leader. I think he's 1-2-1 right now in the current game after a couple of ganks on towards him. But also, I think Dan has been struggling a little bit too, because a lot of what he's tried to do in this game is rotate from whatever his lane is to try and double gank the leader side of the map. So if he's mid lane, it's about roaming top lane, getting a 3-man dive with Kirei. If he's top, it's about going mid lane. The problem with that was we saw there was a very clear moment in this game where Alfari was top lane, Dan had just rotated mid, and Alfari just zones him off of 2 waves because Kirei wasn't on the top side of the map. So when this type of thing happens, it all of a sudden denies Dan a lot of resources that he's going to be really missing on.
I'm interested to know your opinion on this because this is Dan we've built up as this monster split pusher. He likes to take, all of his stats suggest he's a pretty aggressive top laner. He likes to take that true split push role. He's been given the Karma this time round. It's a bit of a departure from what we usually see Dan pick up. And for me, I feel like Dan has been one of the core components of the Misfits wins. Do you think that this Karma is pulling away from where we've seen Misfits actually take their wins previously, or do you think this is just them flexing a new style? Or
so it's simply a matter of having to adapt to a draft. Largely because Misfits are on blue side, so they have to blind pick something.
Yep.
One of the safest blind picks that they can make is Karma, because she can be flexed into 3 different roles. Arguably 4 if you take the reckless approach, and she can also be played in the AD position, right? So she's one of the safest blinds, and this means that Misfits have the liberty to do whatever they want with her. So you're right in the sense that in an ideal world, they'd love to put Dandan on a counter, but he's never going to get that counter pick because he's on the blue side, which means that what Misfits have to do is they have to pick something safe, and then they adapt in the draft. And what they valued more was having Hiva on a roaming support in the form of a Rakan. So I think it was more of they found more value elsewhere, and they have enough faith in Dandan that he doesn't have to be a big carry.
So I'm going to pose this question to you. This is hypothetical. I want both of your opinions here. Let's say this was another team and it wasn't Leader. You took Karma. Would you have given Leader Karma here and given Dandan something else?
Maybe.
I'm just saying, because is this a limitation of Leader's champion pool, and is that something that we're starting to see in this game?
Oh, I see. I mean, potentially, yeah. What do you think?
I mean, what we saw, right, was a Corki pick and an answer with Aurelia, right? So I think like that's a fine answer, especially Leader talks about playing assassins in the mid lane. Aurelia does enough damage to be considered an assassin in that matchup. Sure, why not? Sure. I think this is a very comfortable matchup for him. The problem was then the Renekton coming in and then sort of mixing up the lane assignments. But even then, like, Leader was solo killing the Corki in the top lane, so I don't think this was a problem at all for the draft.
Yeah, I think it made the most sense. And like, what I think is what hasn't really been tested yet is Leader's champ pool, because when we look at things like the EU Masters, teams would often limit what assassin he could be put on, and then they would try and pick the best possible matchup based on the assassins that were left. LEC mid laners say, we really don't care. Like, you might be good, but you're actually not good enough to just kill us. So you can have whatever assassin you want, except for Kiana and Akali, because apparently they're too strong. But like, for the most part, you can have whatever you want, and we'll just pick something safe, and we'll pick something that you can't kill. And I think that that's like the evolution of mids, and it gets to a point where I think you reach like cap status, where, okay, maybe we do have to ban these champions because regardless of what we pick, there's a risk of his dying.
But also, I don't think his champion pool is problematic for the fact that he can be banned out, because he plays so many of these melee mid laners.
True,
now, the thing is, right, I think the perceived problem with his champion pool is that it could limit the styles of play that Misfits go for, especially if we were to get more into a meta that favors ranged mid laners, and he's not able to have the same impact in game on these bruisers and assassins in the mid lane. That's where it could be problematic, but I don't think it is for Misfits as of now.
It's interesting because you say banning him out. That was actually a tactic that almost every team tried to employ versus Misfits during the European Masters, and it had no impact. But now this
except for when Genex picked that Renekton.
Yes, that
was less about bans, though.
That wasn't really bans. That was just Genax having a really, really good and diverse champion pool, which we kind of saw today, actually, with the SK. I mean, Aatrox mid is definitely something that we've seen a lot of, but it's not something that is so common right now, and Genax wanted to take that there. But it's something that the EU Masters teams tried to do versus Leader, and it just never worked. Now, I think if we were to reflect on that in an LEC setting, you're looking at the fact that these mid laners are like, well, even if we did ban his entire champion pool, like, we have that one assassin, but like you said, Andy, it like really doesn't matter which one he picks because we're comfortable into all of them, which I definitely think makes drafting a bit more flexible versus Misfits. But speaking of Leader, we have got a couple of his early mishaps, so let's have a quick look at that.
Some of his deaths in terms of the game.
Oh, wait, I've just been told players are actually ready. Sorry. Yes, we're ready to go. So we're back into game. Let's hand back over to Quickshot.
Thank you very much, and welcome back, Quickshot and Papa Smithy here. Thank you very much to Berlin and everybody else watching at home. You can hear the crowd here chanting, "Save the Boros." They were playing some volleyball. We greatly appreciate it. They will be returned at the end of the show. Now, before we jump back into game, I just want to update everybody that at 13 minutes and 40 seconds in the game, Dandan paused, reporting a potential bug to League officials. After taking Kleptomancy as a rune, he reported that at that point in the game, he had not yet received a single item from the rune. We've reviewed the Shadowplay footage of the game, and League officials have confirmed that while receiving gold from Kleptomancy, he did not, in fact, get any items from the runes. League officials have ruled that at this time they do not see evidence that this is a bug. He is still receiving gold, and because Kleptomancy has a chance of not providing items, it is determined that he has had an extremely unlucky streak of odds not receiving an item so far. Officials have called that we play on. Players are in game. And that is hashtag MonkaS.
This is like the Twilight Zone game, the 0.0001% game where you just didn't get any items. He's legit hashtag unlucky.
Yeah, there's no other way of putting it. You can see the gold is there. You can see that Corki's Nuke Duck has been getting some items along the way. It's a very difficult situation to be in, and it's just frustrating to deal with, right? So kudos to DanDan for calling the pause. Apologies for the delay, but it is good that we checked. And now we're back into game where Origen are 5,000 gold up. They have been able to counter every positive play that Misfits have attempted to make, and Cold and Mithy have really just been in control of this early game.
And to extend our early game discussion and also what they were speaking about on the analyst desk about how Misfits play it out, you know, we also identified as DanDan's going to speed away.
Yes, indeed. Gets pinned against the wall. Looking for the dredge line from Mithy. Not even going to need it. Depth charge comes up. The Ignite. Shield will tick away. Momentary blip as Kirei's not going to be able to chase down. And I think DanDan able to survive just barely.
Just able to walk out, but again, coming back to our estimations of the 4-1, playing around leader, that's not really possible anymore. Now he has to deal with the Renekton. They can't choose their matchup. It's a 2-level lead.
Unbelievable stuff. A stun lands onto leader. The Flawless Duet will come out. That will buy some time. Vanguard's Edge comes out as well. Look at the minimap, by the way. Nuke Duck is making his way down. Leader's
Wave
trying
goodbye.
to escape, but he gets stunned up by the W, and Alfari will pick up the solo kill. 1-1-4, and he's got himself a 10 CS advantage as well.
So, as is very clearly confirmed, you cannot send leader into the side lane because you don't get to choose them anymore like you could in the early game with the blind swap. So because of that, suddenly, Misfits just have to try to team fight with a Karma, which is again possible. However, Ezreal doesn't have 2 items yet. Leader is desperately trying to find one. Now all Misfits can do is kind of pilot an inferior comp when it comes to earlier fighting against Origen, when Origen decides, and only the game extending to those core items a little bit late can be any kind of welcome respite for Misfits.
This isn't the team that Misfits wanted to play against to hope that they would not be able to close. Origen with the lead are extremely terrifying. There's a lot of experienced players on this roster, and they know how to push their advantage. So for Misfits, looking for unforced errors and hoping that Origen don't punish them further, but Cold once again, just having a great game. 3-0-3 as Gragas has counter-ganked and punished Leader multiple times. By the way, I did say Leader's last Irelia performance went 1-6-1.
Hey.
He's 1-4-1. If he ends 1-6-1, a quick stat for you, Papa Smithy. Both games would be the same KDA.
Wow, look at you. You're really working on these quick stats today, which I always appreciate. I always give you a shout out, as you know, on the LCK
You
broadcast.
do indeed. I was disappointed you didn't have your Dragon stats prepped for me yesterday upon your arrival. But we can fix that. We can work on it.
I went for a handshake and you gave me a pile of papers.
You should have been
You're
more
on
prepared.
thin ice at the moment.
You
Trevor.
should have been more
Thin
prepared.
ice.
More prepared. Well, big shout out again. Thank you very much to everybody here in Berlin for having such good energy in that very extended pause. And thank you for sticking with us. We still have Fnatic taking on Schalke once this game concludes, but
Top
for
4
Misfits,
matchup there.
it will be a fun one. For this one, though, it's just like, man, Misfits have to dig deep.
It's not impossible. Look,
No,
at the end of
it's
the
not.
day, it isn't. The Ravenous Hydra is there, so at least you can side lane and not die instantly. And if they can find a way to get a pick, there's always the chance that you can try to force Origen's hand. But right now, it does feel like it plays into their hands.
Yeah.
And you look at this, and it needs to be an outnumber or a surprising play. And these wards are pretty deep behind enemy lines from Origen.
Yeah, you've seen Cold and Alfari using them over the last few minutes. I mean, it's 2 towers to 0, so Origen can still knock over that mid-outer. And there's 2-level difference between Alfari and Leader. Alfari's got the Black Cleaver, the BF Sword, Kindle Gem, and here comes more support. So,
Oh, yeah.
Din, 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 din. It's the hunting squad. Vanguard's Edge first, though, from Misfits. There's so much HP to burn through for Alfari. He's easily able to pick up the kill. Yet another onto Hiva, swatting him out of the air. Now here comes Neon and DanDan as well, and it's still not done. Alfari's going to get another. The huge HP. He's still alive. He's not done yet. Finally, Neon takes him down, but the dredge line from Mithy convinces Origen to secure the ace, the mid-tower. And they're going to be turning towards Misfits base. 9,000 gold up.
To call that a trade-up from Origen would be an understatement. They had an all-you-can-eat buffet on kills and also structures. The gold lead only grows. 10,000's a pretty easy number to calculate. We're over it.
Unbelievable. Look at the gold differences between the lanes.
I try not to.
Oh, man, 3,000 between DanDan and Alphari. Just to say it alone, 5 towers to 0 now. I mean, this is pretty much like GG.
no.
Nukeduck's going to almost kill Hiva. Not going to be able to do it, but Hiva loses his flash, so one of those engaged tools.
And we were on the precipice of a lockout item that I'll identify after this replay, but it's another case, and you often see these with the younger teams who play a predictable style, which is, all right, at some point, leader needs to get his gold. They go for their play, and they think, okay, we're out of vision, we've got the drop on them, but it's well read by Cold, you know, a player that I've criticized, and also Mythy, who are backing up their side laner, who has a big bounty and a lot of gold. This Croc was pretty damn massive in the play to get the cleanup kills. When we get the overlay back up, you'll notice the lockout item for me that really kind of means that leader is very likely to be forcing into irrelevance in the 1v1 against Renekton is the Spear of Shojin. And, you know, it's pretty good against DanDan as well.
Oh, it's good against everybody. Flash over the wall, Alphari can't chase. But, I mean, this is impressive for OG. I'm happy to see them bouncing back. I'm also happy to see them matching, equaling, and bettering Misfits' early game. Because if you look at their wins and losses over the last few weeks, while the engage is happening, I still think Misfits are more likely to die than Origin. The second half of the split started on a 3-game loss streak. Vitality, G2, Fnatic. If you compare that to the beginning of summer, Origin were able to beat Vitality.
Yep.
And then obviously lose to number 1 and 2 and pick up a couple of trades here and there. But like, I was getting very worried for Origin. I was seeing a downward trend. I was seeing regression in play. And looking towards playoffs, this team was not looking to peak at the right time. They were plummeting to irrelevance.
And still, with all the kind of logical ways that Misfits could pick this up, I was on the Origin victory prediction because you think about those teams they faced as, might have to hold the point.
Well, let's see, as Patrick will take a big chunk from the True Shot Barrage, buys some time thanks to the ultimates, and stays alive to escape. It's Kirei that goes down first, the tower that follows second, and here comes Alphari, who's looking for a Ruthless Predator but couldn't find a target. And let's talk about those teams that Origin was looking to face.
At the end of the day, if I think of Origin, I think that if they can do their prep on a team and know how they want to play, they will very often beat them. And that was, of course, the case for 8 of the other 9 teams in the league in spring season. I think in summer season, they have been on the back foot on the meta a little bit. They have been caught out in some matches that has really kind of put them on a lower ebb. But when it comes to a team like Misfits that largely will try to, at some point, throw everything in leader, whether he's winning or they're trying to salvage something, I feel like Origin have read the game really correct.
Yeah, absolutely the case. I mean, this tower dive is very well played here by OG. Despite there being the kill there onto Mythy, the tower does fall. Origin get the advantage. They push it even further.
And they know what they're doing. The turret's low enough, they can turn on it and burn it. If the team of Misfits overstays, the gold lead only grows. It's now 11,500 on the map, and it just feels like the win conditions have dried up for Misfits. So if this was the LCK, we go back to that pie talk, Trevor.
Well, we will, because the question I'm going to ask you then is, what is your favorite pie? I actually asked Twitter, by the way,
Really?
to let us know what their favorite pies were.
Did you rule out dessert pies, or what are we doing here?
No, that's not pie is a savory thing. Americans are wrong calling it a cake. But
I think you have a welcoming audience for that comment right now.
I did get updated, actually, that apparently like pepper steak is a South African pie, not a British pie. I had several very British people yelling at me, including my wife, I might add.
Is your history pulling you in multiple directions?
It is indeed. But seriously, we haven't decided what was your favorite pie, because Kirei's going to die.
That right?
And I'm not going to lie, this is just not a great piece of pie. I ran out of rhymes. I really tried. Mythy and Nukeduck are going to chase down, though. Nukeduck is going to look for
That's a big Croc, and I'm Aussie, I wouldn't know.
It is indeed. Come on, Alphari! Can't get in range. DanDan shield and movement speed. There's the slice. There ain't no dice. Run, DanDan, run! Dun, 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 dun. There's a little bit of an engage in the mid lane. Mythy's going to look for some pressure onto leader, and easily, with the help of Patrick, pick up the kill. And I'm still waiting for your favorite pie, because I'm done casting these guys die.
Oh, beautiful. As we watch the ring around a Rosie and the enemy base. Favorite pie? Steak and cheese, pretty good. That's a pretty standard Aussie one. I know that's giving you a...
Steak and cheese? What type of
do that.
cheese?
I don't know. Cheesy cheese. Nothing too special, trust me.
Come on, you're
The brie is for later.
You're an educated man. You can't say cheesy cheese. Are we talking Gouda, cheddar? Like, what do you put in a pie?
The Gouda cheese is what G2's tried in game number 3
That
of
did
the
not
day.
taste very well.
No, it was a bit bitter, actually. As people are
Ouch.
dying by accident.
They got nuked. So what would you do in the LCK in this scenario?
I don't know. Probably something about
Consider this a training lesson, because Kire's going to Nuke. This is going to be 1v4, by the way. Nuke almost finds Dan. He does! Now turns his attention to Kire. A crit and a barrel, a bomb might be enough. The leader should be able to close him out. Ooh! If that bomb earlier had hit, if Nukeduck's aim was better, he would have got another kill. So I'm actually disappointed in Nukeduck here.
That's a very critical approach, quick shot to this one, because it turns out the minimap was the real story. 2 people pushing in each of the top lane and the mid lane. Definitely. Misfits are just looking to try to salvage some KDA as the base finally breaks at 24 minutes.
Yeah, 3, 6, and 1. Leader has tripled the kills that he got last time he played this champion, making my quick stat untrue. But now what I'm going to do is teach you what we would do in the LEC.
I'm listening.
At this stage.
I'm learning.
I'm going to say, let's look at Origin's strength of schedule, Papa Smithy. Because we talked about their improvement today and their suckiness the last few weeks.
Yep.
If you look at these next few games, how many do you predict Origin will win?
I think at least 4 of the 5 here. I think
So who beats Origin?
That's a good question. I actually think Excel are building towards a style that might actually be really strong, but I think that's the sort of thing that could reset week on week, so it's hard to say there. I think Splyce versus Origin will be very interesting to track, because Splyce have meandered a little bit recently. I wasn't too impressed with them last week, and obviously they had that loss earlier today, so that really deserves to be seen. But if it's a confident victory for Origin, there's a real chance that these is just a lineup they can take down.
Okay. I'm gonna quote you on that in a few weeks' time.
Sounds good. I'm not going to be here, and I just won't watch the stream.
Oh,
that
I'm
day.
so disappointed. It'd be really great if you were here in a few weeks' time.
Whoa.
Would be great. I'm saying, hypothetically,
I'll be checking the mail, Trevor.
with some meat and cheese pie. Another true shot barrage goes out. Inhibitor still standing in the top lane, and this Misfit squad, they just never got rolling. They did not have luck in their side. Dan's Klepto being part of that. And then also, let's be frank, they were outplayed. Cold and Mithy had such a great early game. We're only 25 minutes in. 15k lead. First and second inhibs are falling, and this could just be the final push.
And yep, we already said that there was the scaling double 80 carries that were going to take it eventually. Eventually it was upgraded to 20 minutes into the game, and now any connections from Mithy and health bars will be void post-haste.
All right, level 16 on Alfari.
Oh.
That's one big crocodile that can dive into the back line. And of course, Mithy, he's got the availability to throw that mine down. Eva's going to look for an engage, but before it can happen, Kure is already going to get blown up, along with Hiva underneath the fountain. Neon goes down, so does Leader. The last man standing, and Origin turn their attention to the Nexus. Origin stop the losing streak in its tracks, and they are fancying themselves a dive. Origin take down Misfits.
Even with your penchant for onomatopoeia, Trevor, there was no time to eulogize those deaths at the end. People were dying so damn fast, but all of it was Origin, who were a bit surprised by the blind swap that avoided the Irelia-Renekton matchup. But when they found their moment to get a catch, to start getting back into the game, the closeout here was quintessential. Spring Origin was the good Origin that went all the way to the finals. So just like SKT, which started the season 1 and 5, sometimes even great teams need a victory. They need a win to remember that actually they are pro players that are going to be destined to be fighting it out in playoffs. You'd be a brave man not to back Origin to at least make top 6.
Especially after seeing both G2 Esports and Splyce lose a game today. Hugely influential and important for the squad of OG. Misfits, on the other hand, they are now down in the bottom of the table with the teams around them picking up wins. And for Misfits, no real surprise. Rookie team, you expect coin flip type of performances from them.
But we do learn something about this game, because I hypothesized, okay, find a champion for Dan to get a pressure lane on. And in the end, they decided to move him mid lane. Karma can't have that same long lane impact. And the idea of, say, grouping with Dan and AD carry to get leads before leader turned on didn't really work, because they tricked in the execution. It's a bit harder than just Dan's really strong on Jax, and you have to try to deal with that. So maybe that's another strategy that Misfits will have to add to the try again later bucket. And then if leader doesn't get going, just like the analyst desk was hypothesizing, it feels like they run out of a lot of other win conditions.
Yeah, absolutely the case. And Papa, after that game, the most important question on my mind is not what our favorite pies are, but whether or not the rest of Europe agrees that pies are meant to be savory, not sweet. I realized as South African and Australian,
We're
as
very biased.
Southern Hemisphere folk, we can't speak on behalf of Europeans. So you guys need to let us know at LAC, at Papa Smithy, at Riot Quickshot, like, you know, are pies supposed to be sweet?
These are the hard-hitting questions we
They
ask
are.
you on the LEC broadcast.
They are. And the hard-hitting question that I'm going to ask you in a moment is player of the game suggestions. I can see the guys in production busy preparing it. Actually, might be ready already. At LOL Esports, Alphari, Cold, or Nuke Duck? Alphari or Cold, it has to be for me.
I'm with Cold. I actually think he had a really good game in this one where he was ahead of the play. I love the plays where Misfits thinks they found their time
On
to
stage.
catch someone. I'm talking right to him here. Misfits so often thought they had the drop on Origin, and Cold and a friend were always there to back up the side laner. That's bro tier status right there. So Cold gets the bro vote, and for me, he should win the vote.
And it's also the player that has had a fair amount of criticism levied at him and hasn't had the performance. At the beginning of the game, we talked
Agreed.
about his jungle proximity, but the inability to convert it into advantages or leads. Today, not the case.
He's been around a long time, you know, from the Splice days, so he'll take the lumps and he'll understand. He'll know he had a good game today, and recreating that as it goes on is the only thing that's really left for Cold, because playoffs jungling is a whole new ball game, and it seems to be destined for Origin once again.
Yeah, absolutely the case. Now, while Origin were able to pick up the win, we are actually going to hear a little bit more from the Misfits side, from the unlucky Dan, who's being interviewed by Law.
Thanks, guys. Dan, thank you for joining me. Things didn't go your way today, but what went wrong in the end, according to the game plan you had in the beginning?
I think that we just, at one time, we had wrong lane assignments because at the start it actually went quite well for us. We got like a solo kill on top lane, then we dove top again, but then we had like wrong lane assignments with Aurelia matching Renekton and Karma matching Corki. So obviously Aurelia against Renekton is like a pretty bad lane, and then we just got caught once or twice. And from then on, Origin doesn't make a lot of mistakes, and they're a pretty slow-paced game. So after coming back from that, it's quite difficult.
Understandable. Do you think the pause, such a long pause as the one you had, is impactful in the rest of the game when you come back in the game?
I think we were at a stage in the game where we thought, I mean, the pause wouldn't really matter for us. It was just a little bit mentally taxing, I suppose, because I was basically playing without a rune the entire game. But yeah.
Now, I always get to hear what players think about a win, but what will you understand and keep after a lose like that? What will you learn from the game?
I guess we just have to learn to be more consistent in our plays, because we have the aggression down quite well in most departments, but we just have to be more consistent in just everything in our early game, in our mid game, in how we play out the lanes, and just be smarter as a whole.
All right, well, let's see if you can turn it around tomorrow. Thank you very much for this interview, Dan. And we're going to take a break, and coming back, it's going to be the last game of the day, Schalke 04 versus Fnatic. Don't go anywhere.
Teleport from Nuke Duck. That's a stun and a kill onto Neon. Hiva will get shut down by Miffy. And that's just a very good play from Origin. Now Dan all out of sorts. 4 members of Origin going to look to run him down. Hero and leader nowhere near close enough. Now here comes Neon and Dan as well, and it's still not done. Alphari's going to get another. The huge HP. He's still alive. He's not done yet. Finally, Neon takes him down, but the dredge line from Miffy convinces Origin to secure the ace. He was going to look for an engage, but before it can happen, Kira is already going to get blown up. Along with Hiva, underneath the fountain, Neon goes down, so does Leader. The last man standing, and Origin turn their attention to the Nexus. Origin stop the losing streak in its tracks.
Nevada Finals.
Experience the LEC Finals in Athens with Shell V-Power.